a lot has happened in the in the MMA world. By the way, I'm so glad that we postponed it to Tuesday, because recently we've had a few Bellator fighters move into the UFC, man. Unbelievable. We've got Patricky Freire. We've also got McKee is on the roster as well. Nemkov, Michael Page. What the hell's going on, man? Crazy.
Man, you know what's crazy? The UFC, in their MO, usually signs fighters in the US at least, who are a little bit past their prime in terms of like Michael Chandler, Eddie Alvarez, Ben Askren. Love these guys. Super exciting. Arguably a little bit past their prime by the time they got in the UFC. However, guys like, and you can see it now, like Michael Venom Page, a little bit past his prime. However, McKee, Nemkov.
Damn. That's crazy.
Those guys are right in their prime now. Are you? So, okay, I knew the other four, like the Pitbull brothers, McKee and Michael Venom Page. Vadim Nemkov is on this list as well.
Yes, yeah. Nemkov is apparently on the UFC roster as well, which is absolutely nuts because he's the champion. You would think that PFL would want a light heavyweight champion, don't you think? Crazy, isn't it?
Okay, but this plugs in to okay. We got to break down each one of these one at a time. But let's start with Nemkov because it's the most exciting. Jamal Hill, with the cursed lightweight title, has now injured himself and vacated it, just like Jiri did. Light heavyweight is wide open. A guy like Vadim Nemkov absolutely could be champion in the UFC's light heavyweight division. However, let's talk about, okay, Ash, if you're the matchmaker in the UFC, what do you do?
Vadim Nemkov versus God, man. There's just so many fun matchups for, at that level. I mean, you wouldn't put him against Jiri straight away because that's just, Jiri's got a win over him. That's the only loss he's ever had, Nemkov. Jamal Hill is injured at the moment. Why not just make it, give him a little bit of an easier matchup against, I mean, I say easier, but kind of easier against Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker's still number 5 in the world. Everyone else is fairly tied up. Jamal Hill is injured at the moment. You've got Glover Teixeira's gone. You've also got trying to remember his name now, Jerry Prochazka, who's just about to come back, but is probably going to be fighting for a vacant belt anytime soon. Alex Pereira is fighting Jan Blachowicz. Pretty much the top 6 is completely, they're all busy at the moment, apart from Johnny Walker. Make Nemkov as Johnny Walker. In fact, I'm predicting if Nemkov comes to the UFC, they will make that fight. It's a great fight to make as well.
And I think, okay, so the top few at light heavyweight are all kind of on win streaks right now. Like Nikita Krylov is on a little win streak. Johnny Walker's on a little win streak. Rakic is not on a win streak, but that's okay. Magomed Ankalaev, of course, is coming off a draw. But I think, like you said, so all of these guys are right there. The only problem was that the Jan Blachowicz and Alex Pereira fight was the next big one scheduled, and it was at an awkward time where there wasn't enough time to put a belt on it. Because I think in any other scenario they would have. But again, if you look at like Krylov, Walker, we got Blachowicz, Pereira, I'm not entirely, that's a little tournament right there of guys who need to be in there. However, if you have Nemkov, like you said, he can absolutely beat Johnny Walker and put him right into a title shot almost right away, because that guy is championship quality.
Absolutely, man. I mean, like what Nemkov has been doing, he's been doing good for a very long time. I do feel like they need to round off, they need to have a bit more light heavyweights into the actual division as well, because everyone that gets some traction, they get injured. So you might as well.
What is wrong with this belt, eh? Like, why is it so clear since Jonathan Jones has dropped the belt? Like, and also the division was the marquee division in MMA, like Wanderlei, Rampage, Chuck, Randy. It was the marquee division. And then John ended it to where it's like no one can even hold the belt, and the division is kind of sucky at the moment.
It is, man. It is. And speaking to Jimmy Manoa, shout out Jimmy Manoa. You guys will get that interview very soon. But he mentioned at the moment, and he's right in saying so, no one's really said this division's mine. I'm gonna dominate it. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna run through everybody. No one's actually done that yet, as of yet. Even Jiri, when he won the title, he won that by the scrap of his teeth, man. Like it was such a scrappy performance. So I don't know, man. I think when Jones left, it really does kind of display that the division is a lot more deeper than it ever was, man. It actually was deep. It's just that Jones just made everyone look average. It was
it was like a rotating door. I can't even compare it. Like maybe, yeah, it was just an insane time. But yeah. So and now with Vadim Nemkov, but let's look at AJ McKee. AJ McKee is right in his prime. He's on a 2-fight win streak. His only loss is to Patrício Pitbull in
questionable
MMA.
As well.
In a questionable loss. AJ McKee is a dang good fighter. This guy should be into a title shot right away. And whatever division he decides to go into, whether I'm not sure if he's ever going to make bantamweight. He does look like he is a featherweight and lightweight fighter. Pretty quick into the top 5, but those are competitive divisions, man. I don't know what to do with him, but it's an exciting one, yeah.
Absolutely, man. Like you got AJ McKee is very long for the featherweight division as well. So there's a few good matchups. I personally think, just put him against Max Holloway, man, straight away. Just main event, 5-round UFC fight night. That would be absolute gangbusters, man. Unbelievable. And he's been calling out Max Holloway, and he's been calling out Alexander Volkanovski for the longest time as well. So if you're going to have someone like AJ McKee, who is questionably someone who's going to be a star later on, just throw him against Max Holloway, see how he does. If he beats him, if he somehow finishes him as well, oh my God. Can you imagine the title fight between him and Volkanovski? It's unbelievable. If he goes to lightweight, I think he's slightly undersized. So I personally think featherweight is a great place for him. But yeah, book that Max Holloway and AJ McKee fight, man, immediately. Awesome fight.
I co-sign with you. And I think the UFC, when they do sign names from the US, like Ben Askren got a great fight. He was Robbie Lawler right away. They tend to put them in against good fighters. And same with like Eddie Alvarez was fighting Donald Cerrone, who was top ranked at the time in his debut. So I think, you're probably right. AJ McKee will get a top 5, maybe a Max Holloway right away. But how about the big, and then we'll talk about the PFL Bellator buyout. And like,
absolutely,
this changes things a bit. Michael Venom Page. Holy shit. It's been a while. And I don't think people realize, but like, he is genuinely quite a big star. Bellator has done a tremendous job promoting him, where like he might be outside of the UFC roster. He might be the biggest fighter outside the UFC going, because people know him. People know his highlights. People know his name. People know his face. He's certainly a little past his prime at this point. But what do you do with him in the welterweight division? You put up the Wonder Boy Thompson post.
Oh, I love that, man. I love that fight. I mean, I've been thinking about that fight, even before I heard about the fact that he was a free agent. I think it's a great fight. Someone did bring up a great kind of point. So I apologize. I just totally forgot who made the comment, but it's actually very smart. And he goes, it could just be a staring competition because they're both classically very good counter strikers. They don't want to fall into each other's traps either. So it could just be a very, very boring fight, but I'd love to see that, honestly. I mean, the fact that it's never, people have already kind of, I mean, I put the post up on our page, Tim, and immediately after I put it, and I'm not saying anyone copied me, nothing like that, or nothing like that, but you have like 10, 15 other pages they go, make this fight. So it's already got interest before it started. No,
man, you know what? We can't be those people to be like, hey, don't steal our stuff, because
exactly.
You and I would be out of business if we couldn't steal other people's stuff.
Left Hook Club, man, come on, stop canceling us.
It's so funny. I feel so bad because Left Hook was great. I liked the Left Hook page. They were really good. They were different, but I recognize my limitations, that like I'm bad at memes. Even one of the pages, like I wrote up a Muay Thai page, and like I was like, send me some meme ideas, and I was like, I don't know. I have no idea, man. So that's why I appreciate people like you, people that I can steal. Anyway, but yeah, Michael Venom Page is a really exciting one. But the PFL Bellator buyout looks like it's pretty green lit at this point. It's not, maybe the ink isn't done at this point. The ink isn't dry, but it seems basically done at this point. This really takes some wind out of the sails, because like Bellator doesn't have a ton left. Ryan Bader, maybe the Aaron Pico, but like Pitbull, AJ McKee, and Michael Venom Page were kind of their biggest names. Stop me when I'm wrong. And maybe Cyborg and stuff like that. UFC obviously not in business with her anymore. But like, this kind of colors it differently, right? Am I wrong?
I just find it strange, man. PFL is worth billions, right? I think they're worth billions, correct? You can correct me if I'm wrong, but they're worth a lot
billions. Billions, perhaps. I don't know.
I mean, they're worth money. So why would you let go of Patricky Freire? Why would you?
Oh, Bellator is worth billions. Oh, Bellator, because of the UFC lawsuits that are going on right now, we now have a really good idea, because Bellator gave their financials to this court case, and Bellator makes like it wasn't that much. I think it was like 100 million per year.
Wow, damn. And they're probably making a loss, man. I don't know.
And then put it into perspective that the UFC is worth close to 20 billion.
Madness.
Not much the number 2 is so far away.
Yeah, I mean, come on, that's that's a ridiculous amount of money. But I think this is you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of when the UFC bought out Strikeforce. So, and when a lot of the MMA community were just jubilant about this, but this could really go either one or two ways. This can make MMA better or worse. I'm not saying the buyout made the UFC worse or anything, but it was just nice to have kind of an alternative MMA promotion. And we're not going to probably have that anymore. Well, I mean, not that most people are watching Bellator anyway, but...
But I don't think people realize that we have been in such a UFC-centric decade that the UFC for 10 years has had no competition. And I know Bellator and PFL exist and won to a lesser extent. Bullshit. We were there, man, YouTube's not going to like this video. We were there during Strikeforce and even Affliction, where there was actual legitimate competition coming into the UFC. And because the UFC hasn't had real competition for a while, now they're doing shows overseas, like in the UK, where it's really quite unimpressive. They'll do shows in the US week in, week out, where there's nothing going on. Now, we used to have Fedor fighting on the same night as Anderson Silva, and one of those fights was on free TV. Like, people don't realize how good we used to have it. We used to have Alistair Overeem fighting Fabricio Verdum on free TV.
Oh my God, man. Oh.
So what I'm saying is that more competition will only benefit the viewers. And I was hoping that the Bellator PFL buyout would actually make some legitimate competition. But if they're taking their 4 biggest names, the UFC has won this buyout before it's even done, right?
Yeah, I personally, I couldn't agree anymore, Tim. When you had that competition, it was almost like, let's make a super event. Let's make this year a better event than our competitors. And nowadays, you don't have that anymore. It's like, let's just put what's her name and what's his face here for a 5-rounder. People are gonna watch us because what else is there to watch, man? You're gonna watch this event? No one gives a shit, man. Just keep watching UFC, and you're gonna keep watching it because at the end of the day, there's nothing else to watch. But nowadays, it's like it's probably gonna be amplified even more now. You got all the stars from Bellator. I think they're just gonna double down on not really making these super events anymore, which is sad. It's genuinely sad.
Yeah, we get 2 really like gangbusters UFC shows per year. But like I missed the UFC's growth phase when they were investing in other markets, because it's crazy to think they did like 2 shows in Prague, they did shows in Denmark, they did shows in Sweden. Just like, and none of those countries loved MMA, but the UFC was happy to like introduce a new sport and then do all the work to grow it there. Like the UFC was in Poland before KSW was.
Yeah.
That's insane. But now the UFC is like, we'll just go to London twice a year. We'll go to Paris once a year. That's all of Europe, right? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, man. Do you remember when they were going to Singapore? They had Ben Askren headlining an event in Singapore as well against Damian Maia. And, because Ben Askren used to be at 1FC, and it just doesn't make any sense, man. Like they had Macau, Kung Lee, our guest, former guest in the show, Kung Lee. He was in Macau as well. Yeah, you're right, man. They don't really branch out. Like they do it, keep it very safe. We'll just do it in Las Vegas, US. We'll just keep it there. But I think hopefully with all these fighters coming in, we're gonna start getting a bit more blockbuster events. But honestly, like knowing the UFC, they're probably gonna make some of these big guys fight in the prelims. Splash, make it free. Make it free on TV.
Speaking of major competition, let's get to the one, and I can't believe we haven't talked about it. It feels like it's old news because it's been 1 week. It's been one week only, so we're not behind on the news.
1 week's left, man.
So 1 week's left. I'll do a little monologue on this because I think it's really interesting, and then I'll get you to talk
absolutely.
on it. But Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury are signed to fight. It looks like it might be an official bout, not exhibition. It's going to be under full boxing rules. The titles won't be on the line. There is a rematch clause. It will be 8 figures as far as we know. But Francis Ngannou, like when he hangs up the gloves in maybe 4 or 5 years, he will have lived one of the most interesting lives of any human being in history. Like, We're talking about 10 years ago, he was in a Cameroonian village.
Yeah.
We're talking about like maybe 10 years ago, he was sleeping in a gym because he was homeless. This fall, he is headlining against the lineal boxing heavyweight champion of the world. What an incredible life this man has lived. And just utterly fascinating. And also every step of the way, betting on himself and somehow succeeding. Every risk could have ended in failure. And somehow this guy just keeps growing. Like, I can't imagine sleeping on a gym and then becoming UFC heavyweight champion and turning around and telling the UFC to go F itself.
Yeah.
And then it works out. How does it work out? Like, Randy Couture couldn't even do that. BJ Penn couldn't even do this. But Francis Ngannou just has something behind him. The other side of it, Tyson Fury is so scared to fight Usyk, and I'm just... Okay, so that's my hot take on it. Tell me what you think. Tyson Fury, Francis Ngannou. Go ahead.
I mean, we've discussed this as well, Tim. So we already know, man. Like we know that Francis Ngannou most likely is going to get the work. I mean, on paper, I think Fury even finishes him. I think he finishes him in the later rounds as well. But man, look, Francis has got that nuclear option. The main difference is between, and you know, I think the best comparison I can think of is when Conor fought Floyd. Conor has power, but he never had the same amount of nuclear power that Francis Ngannou holds. Because Conor can, he's got insane knockout power. He can knock out a lot of people, but at the same time, man, Francis Ngannou is just otherworldly power. Now, I think I've I've listened to an interview. Eric Nixick goes, "We're not going to make this a boxing fight. We're going to make this a little bit, kind of alluding to the fact we're going to make it a bit uglier. We're going to try and do something that other boxers haven't done." But really, man, I just don't feel that there's a chance in hell that Ngannou is gonna win this fight. And if he does, it will be the biggest. You can hear it here first. That will be the biggest combat sports upset in history, and probably in our lifetime as well, without a shadow of a doubt.
No, that's a Buster Douglas moment. That's an insane moment right there. More. Yeah. Well, even like, I know the natural comparison is Conor Floyd, and I agree with that. But I think Conor had a better chance in that matchup than Ngannou currently does.
Honestly, I mean, Fury's got the reach. He's got the height against him as well. He's got the weight. I don't know if he's got I don't believe he's got the power advantage, but he's definitely got the speed advantage. He's got technique. It's just too many things that he's got on his side. But this is something that Conor, mentioned in a very brief interview. How good in shape is Tyson Fury? How seriously is he taking this training? What weight is he at? You know, because if he takes it lightly, and he doesn't train as hard, who knows? Who the hell knows?
And he showed up to some fights, like his Otto Volin fight he didn't take that seriously. He wasn't in shape for it. I can't imagine he's going to take Ngannou too seriously, but like Ngannou in the UFC, in MMA, he was never a technically amazing striker. Mechanically, he wasn't an amazing striker, but a lot of those highlight reel knockouts, like the ones against Overeem and who was the gentleman from Belarus Andrei Arlovsky, of course.
Yeah.
It's almost like they didn't quite know how good he was, and he was a really good inside fighter, and then they went into the inside. Once people realized that he was an inside fighter, Cyril Gane could outstrike him, and then he had to wrestle, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
If Cyril Gane is outstriking you, Tyson Fury is going to punch you in the face a bunch of times,
exactly.
Right?
And Cyril Gane was jabbing him a whole bunch of times, man. He managed to land that jab quite a few times. Francis Ngannou's jab has improved massively. I mean, you saw it. We all saw it in the Stipe Miocic rematch. You know, he went at a much slower pace. He paced himself a little bit more. He's patient. But they say in boxing, it is boxing. It's not MMA. So just due for that reason, there's no way, man. There's no way. I'm probably going to put some money on Fury as well. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to get $10 here off like 100.
Yeah, that's it, man. It's such a safe bet, but I am impressed. Like, it wasn't Anthony Joshua, it wasn't Deontay Wilder, it wasn't a Derek Chisora. It was the top dog. It was Tyson Fury, and that's kind of a big deal in itself. This guy, win or lose, he's won already. But in the actual fight itself, it won't be close. It won't be competitive.
I just don't see it happen. I just don't. And I, you know what? I do love the MMA community for the fact that, you know what, Francis might have a chance. You know, he's got power. Oh my God, he can actually do this. And I'm like, Come on, man. What we learn with Conor and Floyd, man? Like, it's not the same thing, man. It isn't.
The MMA community,
I love
them. We're all marks, though. You know what I mean? By the time that Conor and Floyd were fighting, we were all like, maybe Conor can really do it. We believed in our heart of hearts. Same with Ngannou. We're marks. I'm just like, maybe he can, bro. We got to come back to reality here.
Yeah, the only way this could happen is if Francis Ngannou's best chance here of winning is just the hug and hold for majority of the fight, and at the end of each round, just try and get a haymaker, just wear him down, because he's still. I think he'd still be the more powerful, powerful man. He's done grappling before. You could probably wear him down by just kind of hugging him a little bit. But let's be honest, man. Boxing's so corrupt. The referee's going to be like, just break you up. None of that shit.
I think so too. Because Floyd got his pick of referee, and Conor couldn't do anything because it wasn't a ref who let clinching go. I think Tyson Fury is going to be in the same boat, that he's picking his ref, and he knows what the ref is going to bring to the table. And I think it's going to be a very ugly fight. It's not going to be worth watching. But I love the hype. I love this kind of stuff. I love it. Sport watching has always been part of the sport. Like people are like, man, Saudi Arabia's, man, that's why Muhammad Ali was fighting in places like sometimes the Philippines or Zaire or something. That was all sport washing, and sport washing is a part of it.
This is like, sorry, no, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
This reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen Rocky 1 yet, Tim, where I think it's Apollo Creed, and he's like, listen, man, just fight a bum, like just fight anyone. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it's like, we need to get your name out. No one really cares right now. Like we just have a little bit of a tune-up fight before the next big one. And I feel like this is the biggest kind of, it's very similar in a way. Fury is avoiding the big, the obviously the lineal fight against Usyk right now. He wants an easier fight. He wants to get a bit of money, but it's just, this ain't Rocky, man. It's I just don't see him win. I don't see Francis Ngannou.
He came to the press conference and he said, give me the easiest fight in the division. And they found him Francis Ngannou.
I want the easiest fight in the division. I want Ryan Bader.
But, Tyson Fury has gone on record. This was years ago, but he said the toughest fights of his career were people like, Kyle McLaughlin on Combat Chronicles. Shout out Combat Chronicles. Kyle, great stuff. Great people over there. Definitely follow them. But he fought like one guy, I think it was Steve Cunningham, who was, I forget the name exactly, but he was a cruiserweight, and Tyson Fury struggled. And he said, like, these small cruiserweights I struggle with. Man, Alexander Usyk, he's a tiny cruiserweight, right?
Man. I watched that live actually, which is crazy. It's so funny you mentioned that. It was on you guys that most of you Americans wouldn't know what I'm talking about. It was on Channel 5. It was on free TV in the UK, where Tyson Fury was fighting Steve Cunningham. And I was watching it, and Tyson Fury took him very lightly, and Steve Cunningham dropped him in that fourth round. And it almost looked like Fury was knocked out, or he was about to be knocked out, managed to kind of come back from that and win the fight. But yeah, Usyk versus Fury, that should really be the main, it should really be the fight. Let's be honest.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you. Hey, before we get to the actual last piece of news that we were going to talk about, I want to throw a spanner in the works.
Oh yeah,
because we're talking about freak show fights. Hear me out. Just give me a sec.
Yeah.
I'm just formulating this. UFC 300 is coming.
Yeah.
Do you remember at, I think, UFC 200, Daniel Cormier and Brock Lesnar got in a shoving match, and the fight never materialized.
Yeah.
And that would have been a blowout because DC was in his prime. Brock was injured all the time. It just never was going to work out. It wasn't UFC 200. It was sometime after that. What about UFC 300? Both guys are retired. They're both injured. Neither of them have good knees, good back. What about UFC 300? Daniel Cormier versus Brock Lesnar. What do you think? Is this possible?
Jesus Christ, man. They're both 44, 45 years old now. I mean,
if it's shit, just say it. It's fine.
I would rather see DC versus John Jones 3.
Man,
you might as well make that fight.
Do you want to see I can't say anything. I like Daniel too much, but like
I do.
Daniel,
I love Daniel, but look, he's 44. He knows he's 44. He's old, man. He's retired. Like he'll get smoked by a lot of these heavyweights, even the ones that he would have taken out in his prime. I just don't see it happening, man. He's not training regularly. Like he's a broadcaster now. So for that to happen, I mean, but Brock Lesnar, DC, it makes sense. I just don't think it will sell too much. That's it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I get it. It's too old, man. You might as well have maybe Fedor Brock at 300. Anyway, let's move on to the actual news. Jake Paul fighting Nate Diaz in MMA and offering $10 million. So Nate and Jake are boxing later this year. Catch me up on the MMA story. What did I miss here?
Yeah, so Jake Paul, he's saying for all you dummies that said that, oh, why don't you fight, Nate Diaz in PFL or, in an MMA cage? Jake was like, I already offered this fight quite a while ago. In fact, yeah, and he doubled down. He made a video recently. He goes, Nate, I'm offering you 10 million. We'll do the boxing fight first. But after that, I want to have an MMA fight with you. And I'm going to offer you 10 million for that, something like that. So he's, fair play. He's got balls of steel to do that. But Nate Diaz is absolutely, even an old out of prime Nate Diaz is going to absolutely maul Jake in an MMA cage. If Jake Paul somehow beats Nate Diaz in MMA, I think I'll just stop watching MMA. I'll be so upset. I'll be like, yeah, Tim, I'm done, man. I think I'm done with this show.
Bro, listen, jiu-jitsu isn't real. Nothing is real. Stockton's not real. None of this matters anymore. The Gracies were never real. It just doesn't matter. Because Jake Paul beat Nate. Yeah, no. Throw in the towel.
Yeah, exactly.
Is irrelevant.
One good thing is, for PFL, you don't actually, elbows are illegal. So that will work into Jake's advantage. The fact that he's not going to get elbowed in the face. But other than that, man, like, come on, let's be honest, Nate's not a wrestler, but he's going to take Jake down. He'll take Jake down easily. 100%.
No doubt. He would do a standing ninja choke or whatever you need to do on it. But yeah, what do you think? Let's just do the boxing match favors Jake the most, I think, in terms of rules. Like
I think Jake wins. I swear to you. I it's sad to say. Nate isn't really the best boxer. I mean, we've had it for years. Andre Ward giving great praise to Jake Paul, saying, he's a fantastic boxer, this, that, and the other. But we've not seen Nate just pure boxing. But just based on his MMA resume, I don't know. Like it's a little bit difficult for me to kind of envision that. And look, as hated as Jake Paul is, and I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of him. I think most MMA fans aren't. He can still fight, man. He's been training boxing for the last 4 years. He's got decent hands. He fought a boxer last as well in Tommy Fury, and he didn't get completely blown out. Like, Tommy Fury still beat him, but it's not like he got his ass kicked for the whole fight. So, yeah, I think he's beating Nate Diaz. Not by stoppage, but by unanimous decision, if I had to pick.
No, I co-sign with the same sentiments. Nate he developed a really sharp 1-2.
Yes.
Pretty good eye for timing, stuff like that. But as an overall boxer, he was more like he used his overall MMA game to set everything up. Whereas like Jake Paul outstruck even an old Anderson Silva, I think, is more skilled in the boxing ring than Nate Diaz.
Oh, absolutely.
Jake's going to have a size advantage in there too.
Yeah. And not just that, Nate's 1-2, yeah. Remember this as well, Tim. Nate's 1-2 is only effective against people that were shorter than him or, have a significant reach disadvantage. Jake's taller than him, or Jake's the same height, and they've got exactly the same reach. So you can throw the 1-2 as many times as you want, but it's not going to be as effective as it would be again in MMA against a welterweight or a lightweight that's a lot shorter or smaller than you. So there's that as well. Having said that, he still managed to rock Leon Edwards with a 1-2. So I don't know.
Yeah, he did. I know he did.
Who knows?
Man, those were the days. Those were the days. Leon Edwards. Man, but yeah, in the MMA cage, like, it wouldn't be close. Like, there's no neutral ground here. Essentially, the boxing will always favor Jake. The MMA will always favor Jake Paul. Even something as neutral as, like, let's say kickboxing, that is heavy on Nate Diaz's advantage. There's no neutral ground, right?
Yeah, man. Kickboxing, even like we got to remember, like Nate can still kick, yeah. Like, you know, he's not the greatest kicker, but he can still kick. Yeah, and for someone to face someone against Jake, yeah, who's never really kicked, and he's probably not even conditioned his shins the same way Nate has for years and years. Yeah, so what's he gonna do? He's gonna get leg kicked. He's gonna get calf kicked. You know, there's gonna be so many things, yeah, that are gonna be favoring Nate in that fight. But I personally am looking to walk forward to the boxing fight with Nate because I'm hoping Nate can kind of pull up the upset. But realistically, 38, 39 years old, Jake Paul, who's been doing this for a while, who, by the way, you know, it's questionable whether he's actually clean or not. Too many disadvantages.
No, I completely co-sign with you. It kind of, it sucks because like the two things that we're talking about are Nate and Francis boxing, and it's too bad that you don't get in MMA things like what's going on with who's the Argentinian soccer player who just went to Miami?
Argentinian soccer player that flew into Miami.
Oh man.
Yes.
Lionel Messi. You know Messi. One of the of like the last decade. I'll cut that bit. Don't worry. But it sucks that you don't get stuff like where Messi was making so much money in his career, and then he just gets like a few easy years playing in the U.S. in Miami past his prime. It sucks that people like Kamaru Usman, Nate Diaz, Francis Ngannou couldn't make their money in their prime in the UFC. Now they're making money in boxing outside the UFC. It's almost meaningless, but it's just too bad that like I don't know. I want these guys to be making money in the UFC. Nate is going to make more money from this fight than most of his years in MMA combined.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I know. I mean, look at it this way. Rampage Jackson recently said on the Ariel Helwani show, if they ever put me in the MMA Hall of Fame for the UFC or Pride, I don't really give a shit. And then like Ariel's like, why is that? And he goes, well, am I going to get more money for it? Am I going to get a pension? At the end of the day, I never fought to be in the Hall of Fame. I fought, and he's alluding to the fact that he fought for money. And that's what you are. You're a prize fighter at the end of the day. Nate Diaz, you know, he'll never be a champion, but he'll probably make more money than Kamaru Usman ever will. He'll probably make more money than, you know, a lot of these champions. Leon Edwards, he'll make more money than many of these champions. So, you know, he's winning regardless.
Exactly, he's winning. He's making the big buku bucks. But yeah, Rampage just said like, pay me. That's
yeah, just pay me, man. That makes sense.
Yeah, Rampage is cool stuff. What else do we need to get to here? What else do we got going on in the world? What are you thinking?
Oh, nothing else. We've got some exciting interviews coming up. I didn't mention this to you, Tim, but we're gonna be jumping on with Andre Petrosky in a few days. We got him booked, which is great news. And yeah, I mean, other than that, like we've got, you know, I've just had an interview with Jimmy Manuel a few days ago, which is gonna be a great interview. I'm you know, know you guys are gonna enjoy it because he kind of mentions his little beef with Alexander Rakic and how you'd want to rematch him if they ever fight again. You know, if he ever comes back into the cage again. So a lot of interesting things happening, and yeah, just stay tuned, guys, man. Subscribe to the page, subscribe to our channel. That's it.
Man, Ash, hugely appreciate your time. We got the Calf Kick Sports podcast, hopefully consistent as possible from this point forward. But man, appreciate your time, eh?
Thank you so much, man.